Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 33rd episode of the Zicast. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Zayaks, and today I'm joined by music and radio personality Amanda Geraci.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I've never been on a podcast before.
Of course, I hope this is an amazing first time. Like to shout out my amazing TD, Ryan Agnello, for stepping in to help once again. So, Amanda, I know you've heard of the Zicast and what I do here, interviewing my friends to get to know them better, and I'm really excited to kind of get into what you're into. So, how about you tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. So, I'm Amanda. I'm a third year communications and media studies major with a minor in advertising and public relations. I came in as a criminal justice major, took one law class, and said, maybe I just like watching true crime shows. And that's it. I love scary movies. I love Hamlet by Shakespeare. I think I'm a very multi-dimensional person. I'm the programming manager for WQAQ 98.1 FM this year, which is Quinnipiac University's student-run radio station, and I love that station with my entire heart. That is my favorite part of being here at Quinnipiac.
Incredible. And radio, it's a lot like this, but without images.
Exactly. They never have to see me. I can wear my pajamas and no one will ever know.
Exactly. So that's a little difference between that and the Zicast. But I like hearing about all the things that you're interested in, and I can't wait to unpack them. So to get into our first topic, I'd like to ask you where your interest in music and radio stems from.
Sure. So I grew up listening to my dad's mixed CDs in the car with him. Anytime we'd be in the car, he had this foldable CD booklet, and he would let me look through them and pick whatever CD I wanted. And that's how I discovered a lot of new music. So I was heavily influenced by my dad's taste, but it wasn't until middle school when I listened to Maroon 5's Overexposed album for the first time did I really start to develop my own taste, which I feel like that's not what a lot of third graders were listening to, but I think it speaks to who I am as a person. So I grew up on a lot of U2, Pearl Jam, The Cure, which I still love to this day, but my music taste has significantly changed since then. But I think my dad was really my first introduction into music, and that was one of our strongest points of connection. So I think just having that personal tie to music has always made it have a super special place in my heart. But it wasn't until I got to Quinnipiac that I really had an interest in radio. The radio that I would listen to when I was younger was the sports broadcasters in my dad's car. When he'd be driving me to summer camp, I hear these sports broadcasters talking about God knows what. But when I came into Quinnipiac, I was a criminal justice major, like I said, and I felt like I didn't do anything on campus aside from go to class and then kind of go back and hang out with my roommate and our friends. And it started to feel really boring after a while. So right after we came back from winter break, I decided to go to the general information meeting for WQAQ, which is where I met Jen Molia, who is now my best friend. Never thought that would happen. Also, now I'm a comms major. So I think it's super important to get involved in things outside of your major because you'll make friends and find passions that you've never had before. So that's where my interest in radio came from, just kind of seeing everybody at WQAQ be super inspired and just seeing them do all of their shows. I was like, I need to be a part of that. And now I am.
Amazing. And Jen Molia is quite the best friend to have.
Yes, I hear that very often. She is just as amazing of a best friend as she is a mentor. I definitely would not be where I am right now without her. So I'm super thankful for her.
Yeah, and she was on here as well, of course, with Connor. We're both incredible people who have gotten to work with a lot. I know how driven and passionate Jen is. I think they were episode 7 of this, if I'm not mistaken, if I know my Zicast lore. But we just got a lot of Amanda lore, which was great.
Oh, you're going to get so much more.
I'm so excited. And yeah, I'd always like talking to people about I had another one of my friends on who's big into music. And he talked about how it all kind of starts when you're young, when you're with your parents, you're listening to what they're listening to, and you kind of evolve from that. So that's incredible to hear. And I very much attest to getting involved in things outside your major. I'm an English major.
Really?
Yes.
I never would have guessed that.
Exactly.
Honestly.
Yes, exactly. Because I do this. I do a lot of film things. I am a film minor, but I do a lot of film things. So it's very much getting involved as much as you can and meeting as much different people as you can, because that's so vital to building yourself up and just building connections, which is all all you hear from communication students.
Yeah, I always hear the phrase, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And as I get older and I get further into the industry, I'm realizing how true that is.
I'd also like to ask you more about your work with WQAQ and what you enjoy about it.
So this year I'm the programming manager, and I have a couple of primary responsibilities, two of which I'm super deep in right now. So two of the things that I'm responsible for doing are leading the training sessions at the beginning of the semester. So we have our new and returning members coming in to the station, and we just kind of give them a rundown of how to use all of our equipment, the rules for our station, and just to like make everyone feel more comfortable. So I've been heading that this year, which has been super cool. I love feeling like a leader. And then scheduling our shows. So our show schedule is my responsibility this year. And with over 70 shows, it's proving to be quite the task. But honestly, it warms my heart to see that we have so many. I would rather struggle to fit everyone on the schedule than have all these empty spaces. So that's how I'm trying to look at it. I've wanted to dive like deeper into event planning for a while, so I'm super happy to have this role because after training and show scheduling is over, my responsibilities will be planning our weekly meetings and any events that we do, whether that's on campus, solo WQAQ events, or if we're collaborating with like QFS or SPB for Fall Fest, which I'm super excited for this year. All of our members really want to get involved, so I think Fall Fest is going to be wonderful. I really love that it's a community. It doesn't feel like a school organization. It just feels like a bunch of people coming together to share their passion for something that they really love. And I remember the first year I joined, so it was the spring of my freshman year, before I had gotten on e-board, I had general members coming up to me saying that like WQAQ was their safe space and it felt like their home away from home. And that was something really impactful to hear because I wasn't even on e-board yet. I didn't even know if I wanted to go for e-board, but just seeing how much of an impact that just a college radio station had on people, it was not something I ever expected to hear, but that definitely furthered my passions for being on e-board and being a leader because I want to keep making people feel like that.
I appreciate your answers to my question. It feels like I'm listening to an audiobook.
Really?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very thought out, very prepared. I really appreciate that. And that's really, really telling about WQAQ. It's very much like an artistic expression to be able to go on and do their shows, like you said, that it's a safe space for people. And that's the great thing about like the kind of podcasting radio space is that it gives you the ability to be kind of yourself in a way that you can kind of speak to other people. So that's really, really cool.
We have people of all different majors too. One of my friends, Christine, is our web manager this year, and she's a radiological sciences major, not in comms at all, but I really like that we have such a diverse amount of majors and minors and different schools at the radio station because I think there's not like a stigma, but just this idea around like student media that, oh, you can't join if you're not a comms major, or if you're like a bio major, they're not going to want you. But I think WQAQ really proves that that's not true and that everyone's welcome. And it's just super neat to see that everyone has this shared passion no matter where they want to head in life. And I've experienced this myself, and I've watched other people experience this, making friends with people that you never would have met if you just stayed involved in organizations that surround your major. I never would have met Jen if I only did criminal justice related things at school, and I never would have switched my major, and I wouldn't be as happy as I am now. So it's really awesome to see how many people we have.
It must be incredible just like being the boss, so to speak.
Yeah.
Kind of running the show. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, it's crazy. I can definitely speak for Jen and Becca Steves, who is our general manager this year, that it's definitely a lot of work to run the station, but it's one of the most rewarding feelings ever.
I bet. And I'd also like to ask you now some of the work you've done in the music industry, and I know you have a new job, so I'd really like to ask you about that.
I do, and I'm so excited to talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll go back to kind of how I first started doing work in the industry that wasn't WQAQ related. So through Jen, I've met a bunch of different connections, which has been super helpful, but one of those connections was with a company called Big Picture Media, and they are an artist and entertainment publicity agency. They're super involved in the punk rock alternative scene, which is perfect because that's my favorite genre of music. And one of my favorite bands of all time has been with them for the entirety of their career, which was just something super surreal to be able to work in that kind of environment professionally. So a lot of what I did there was assistant work for the publicist that they had. So I was helping to do tour press media, putting together like press packs, press releases, press clips, and the work itself was so much fun that every day of the week I'd be like, oh, can it just be Tuesday or Thursday again so I can hop on and do this work. The people were amazing, but it was also just this amazing feeling of doing something I love for artists that I love. And I think about this a lot. It was the first time I ever really felt like the work that I was doing had an impact on real people outside of myself. And that is a feeling that I strive for in everything that I do now, is just trying to replicate that feeling of what I'm doing means something to other people, and I can see the way that my work affects other people. So that was one of the best moments, I think, of breaking out into the industry. So my new job. I recently got a part-time position with Universal Music Group's 1824 team, which Jen also works for. And I am a social media representative and a strategic partnerships representative. So I'm taking on two roles, which I'm super excited for because both of those things I really enjoy doing. So as a social media rep, that is just basically like content creation, making content for Instagram, TikTok, and being involved online. And for strategic partnerships, that would be partnering with some of our UMG artists and other local lifestyle businesses, brands, and just kind of creating collaborations so that we can highlight both and bring more attention to both local businesses and our up-and-coming artists. So super excited to get involved.
And so incredible. Like, where do you think those kind of what you're doing will lead you?
Honestly, I don't know. Every time someone asks me what I want to do as like a career, I always say that I want to do everything once, because I don't know how someone can just pick one singular thing that they want to do. Everything sounds so fun, and I want to try everything. So that's one of my biggest goals, is to just do as many things as I can once. But I'm thinking, I wish that I could add marketing as a minor. That's something I was looking at, but just with the timing of changing my major and then adding on a minor itself, I can't double minor. So I'm super excited to get involved with 1824 to kind of hone my marketing skills and hopefully have a little bit of a marketing portfolio that could lead me down a marketing path if that's what I wanted, which I think would be super fun.
Yeah, like business marketing, that's something I've kind of wanted to get into too, because it's so vital to what we do, because what we do is a business, even though it's so passion driven. So it's always great to kind of have that kind of like business savvy that you could bring into what you do. And speaking of things that you do, I'd like to ask you about kind of where we met, which was your experience with last year's Wake the Giant and your role in it with Rida.
Rida, my man.
Yes.
Wake the Giant was so much fun. I participated in Fall Fest because it is a WQAQ and SPB partnered event. I was able to interview Peachtree Rascals, and I helped out with the volunteers. But even just doing that, I knew that I wanted to get more involved with Wake the Giant. So as soon as the director applications came out, I was on my computer. I was submitting the form. So I was the novelties director. So my biggest job was to design the t-shirts that went out, which was crazy cool. And it gave me that feeling of, oh my gosh, like the work that I'm doing like matters to other people. And just seeing people's responses when they walked up to the merch table and saw the shirts was just so fulfilling. I can't even describe it. So that was my biggest job. And then on the night of the show, I led a group of volunteers on the upper lobby of the M&T Bank Arena near the merch table, just making sure that everything was in order and keeping an eye on people in the seats during the show. So I felt very official, but it was such an amazing experience.
Yeah. For those who don't know, the Student Programming Board, that's like, they do events on campus for students. And also, for those who don't know, I was a volunteer in your same novelties department.
Yes, you were.
So those T-shirts that you designed, I handed out to
Mm-hmm.
the hordes and hordes of students who were there.
Yes. I give
That
you
was
guys
kinda-
so many props for doing that.
Yeah, it was like they were sorted by size, and everyone was kind of rushing in and had to hand them out. That was interesting, and I have one of my own that's still sitting firmly in my closet.
Oh, me too. Every
Yeah.
time I look at them, like, wow, the memories.
Yeah, like wow, that was an experience.
It really was.
I've never been to a concert before then.
Really?
No,
Not your thing?
no, it's not. I wouldn't say it's not my thing. I've always just kind of been like, I don't know. I can listen to an artist on like Spotify for like free in my house, and I don't have to like
Hey,
Go out
that's
to a
so
concert.
valid.
like it's kind it's kind of like the movie theater thing where people are like, I can
Yes.
watch movies at home and not have to go to the theater.
Hmm.
And I've always been an adamant like, no, I'll go to the theater. That's the experience. So maybe I'm just a hypocrite. However,
Yeah.
like I did have so much fun like getting to watch Flo Rida and then getting to see some of my friends go on stage with him. I was just laughing so hard.
That was crazy.
Mm.
I didn't even know that he was going to be doing that.
Mm.
And then I saw people going up, and I was like, oh. But yeah, I think just the atmosphere of concerts in general is something so special. And I really like to see that here.
Mm.
We have so many different kinds of people in different schools and majors here. And I just love seeing everyone be able to come together for like one night for the same reason and just have so much fun together.
Mm.
So, yeah.
So yeah, after seeing Flo Rida rock QU, I was like, you know what? Maybe concerts could become my thing. Maybe if it comes my way at some point, I'll jump on it. But I do see the allure of it for like people who are really into music. 'Cause I know you've gone to a ton of them, which leads us perfectly into my next topic, which is concerts you've been to and like any notable experiences you've had there.
I have many. I actually wrote down a few just so I would remember which ones to bring up. Okay, so the first one, I'm wearing this shirt that I got when I saw Harry Styles at Madison Square Garden on Halloween.
Wow.
Anyone who knows me knows that I love Halloween. I love anything like scary. And he was doing 2 nights at MSG on October 30th and 31st.
Mm.
And this was 2022, I believe. I think it says on my shirt somewhere.
Mm.
But yeah, so this was the first time I ever went to MSG. I went with 3 of my friends, and we dressed up as the Mystery Gang from Scooby-Doo. Which was
you
super
were
fun.
you were Daphne, I'd assume.
Yes, I was.
Yes.
I had
I see it.
crazy
Yeah.
tall go-go boots on. Don't know how I survived the whole night with them.
Mm.
But Harry and his band were dressing up as group costumes, but every night it was a surprise.
Mm.
So the first night they dressed up as all the characters from The Wizard of Oz, which was amazing, and they sang some songs from the soundtrack. For my night, anyone who knows me also knows that I love clowns.
Hmm.
It's very interesting. People usually have mixed responses when I say that, but I love clowns. And I was so excited to see what they were going to be dressed up as. They walk on the stage as clowns. I was like,
Really?
oh, they knew. They knew I was coming.
That must have been like euphoric.
Oh,
to
it
see that.
was. And it was crazy because he was dressed up as my favorite clown, which sounds crazy, but Pierrot is a French clown, and he is super significant just historically, and that's what Harry was dressed up as, and I was like, that's crazy. And then they sang Toxic by Britney Spears. That night,
Wow.
yeah, it was crazy. So that is probably my favorite concert memory. But some other notable experiences, I met one of my best friends at a concert, and I love telling this story. So I was seeing 5 Seconds of Summer a few years ago with some of my friends from high school, and I used to have such an involved presence online with the different fan bases and communities, and I made this group of friends who really liked, One Direction, 5 Seconds of Summer, all the boy bands, and a lot of them were going to be at the same show as me, and they were camping out in line all day. My friends and I weren't, so we brought them cold water. So we go up to the front, and we bring them cold water, and they're with a bunch of girls that they had, met in line. And I just started talking to this girl next to me. Her name's Reagan, and my friends and I took a group picture with her in it, and she just, stayed with our group for the rest of the night. And to this day, we are super close friends. She just texted me this morning about something that happened. But we go to concerts together every summer. That's like our little thing to do. So that was super special to meet one of my closest friends at a concert, which is, you never think you're going to meet someone there and then be friends with them for 2 or 3 years. So that was another, I have so many stories. I'll just tell another.
Please do.
Ooh, okay, so I crowd surfed for the first time this spring, which has been on my concert bucket list for so long, but believe it or not, I can be very shy. And I was like, how do I just go up to someone and say like, hey, can you lift me up in the air and crowd surf me? So I was seeing one of my favorite bands. I drove home from school because they were playing on a Wednesday in Philly, which is where I see all of my shows at home. I'm from Jersey. And of course, they weren't coming to Connecticut because why would they come to Connecticut and make things easy for me? So I drove home on a Wednesday, and I saw them by myself. Such a good show, number one. But it was like the second to last song of the night, and I was like, if I'm going to crowd surf anywhere, it's going to be to this band tonight in Philly, which has such an interesting like punk scene. A lot of the artists that come through say that Philly is the crowd surfing capital of the world, and I believe it. I fully believe it. So I just ran through the pit, and there was 2 groups of like dads and boyfriends, and they were just like lifting everyone in the air. And I went up and I just like tapped one on the shoulder. I didn't even have to say anything. They just threw me up into the air. I was like, okay, so the fate of what happens to me next is in the hands of all the people in front of me. And ever since then, like, I haven't been afraid to crowd surf. So it was good to get that first time under my belt, but it was so much fun.
How does that feel, crowd surfing?
It can be a little scary. I've seen people get dropped. As long as you crowd surf from a good distance from the front of the pit, like, I wouldn't try crowd surfing from the back because you're never going to make it to the front. But it also depends on the band that you're seeing and the community that their fans have. I think it's super obvious if you're in a crowd, you can tell if someone's going to want to lift you up or not. But it was crazy just like being up on top of everyone. I mean, you get a clear view of the band, which is always nice. But yeah, I mean, it was awesome. I think I like blacked out for a little bit just because I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this. But it was the best feeling ever.
It must be a main character moment.
Oh, yes, very much. And the band that I was seeing is Water Parks. Anyone who knows me knows that they're my favorite band in the whole world. So it was extra special being able to do that for the first time at one of their shows. Yeah,
it must be like an adrenaline rush being up on there. I know you talked about like blacking out. That's an interesting experience. Like, you can't really hear in there, so you kind of just go up to someone like, hey bro.
Oh, yeah.
Pick me up.
Yeah, you have to like shake someone on the arm to get their attention. They're like, can you put me up? But yeah, my friend Reagan and I, we always go to the Sad Summer Festival every summer, which is a traveling rock and emo festival, which kind of took the place of the Warped Tour, if you are familiar.
I'm not.
That's okay. So the Warped Tour was a huge rock and emo festival that would come around every summer, and it was a little problematic. It was very like 2010s, like a lot of groupies like to follow all the bands on the set, which were like My Chemical Romance, Fall Out Boy, all in one set. It was a huge festival, and I would do anything to go back and go to one of the shows. But after the Warped Tour ended, Converse and Journeys teamed up together to sponsor the Sad Summer Festival, which is a super small scale festival. There's usually like 8 or 9 artists on the bill, and they will do anywhere from like 20 to 25 dates across the US. And it's so much fun. Reagan and I go to the Philly show every year, but they decided to add an Asbury Park show this year. So we were like, obviously we have to go to both. And she had never crowd surfed before either. So I was like, don't worry about it. Watch me do it. So I did it. And she was like, how did you just do that? Like, how did you just go up to someone and ask them? And I was like, trust me, I had the same thoughts that you did. So I helped her do it for the first time, and she loved it. And she did it all night. And I was like, if I could help one person feel comfortable doing it, that makes me happy.
You brought her out of her shell.
Oh, I did.
That's what real ones do.
Yep. I'm usually the one that needs to be brought out of my shell. When I met my best friend back home, I was super shy in high school. This is also so off topic, but I was super shy in high school, and my now best friend and I had chemistry together sophomore year, right before like COVID. And I like wouldn't speak at all in class, and she would tap me on my shoulder every single day, and she would like ask me a question, and she would like try to make conversation. And I was so socially anxious that I was like, okay, I'm just going to answer her question, and there's no possible way she'll want to talk to me about anything else. So I'd turn back around, and she just tapped me on the shoulder again. I was like, I'm not done with you. I actually want to talk to you. We became lab partners. COVID hit. We FaceTimed every day for 8 hours after our online chemistry class was over. And yeah, so every time I bring someone out of my shell, I'm like, man, is that what it was like for people to bring me out of my shell for so long? So it's definitely a cool experience, kind of like seeing from the outside, like that was me a couple years ago.
Yeah, it is fantastic to look back on yourself, seeing where you've grown like in your college years, because I can relate to that so much, because I was super shy in the past. Like I barely talked. And now there's like 33 videos of me. There will be 33 videos of me now on YouTube talking all the time. And I've gone with my internship, I've gone on podcasts that like hundreds of thousands of people watched.
That's
and spoke.
awesome.
And it's like, it's very, I'm always in a perpetual state of disbelief. And that's
Yes. That's a very good way to put it.
And that's something that I'm very much still in disbelief of. So it's an incredible to kind of help people who were where you were to keep moving forward. So that's awesome stuff. So kind of moving into some like personal questions, I'd like to ask you some of your hopes and dreams professionally or in general.
That's a really good question. So like I said before, I want to do everything once. I would love to be a publicist for an artist. I would love to manage a tour. I would love to go on tour as a photographer, which I think is one of my biggest goals. I love concert photography. I think it's so much fun. And I would love to be an artist's designated photographer on tour one day. I'd say that's probably my biggest goal. But overall, I just want to be happy. And I think that's something that sounds super cliche, but I want to be doing things that make me feel fulfilled. And I want to do things that allow me to look back later in life and say, I'm happy with how I led my life, and there's nothing I would have changed, and there's nothing that I regret not doing. So those are my goals.
Yeah, I think you're on the right track. It's just seeing what you're up to. And yeah, I don't think saying you want to be happy is a cliche. I mean, like that is the goal.
Yeah.
I don't know what else anyone would want to be. And I'm realizing that more and more as I get older, that like, yeah, being happy is all it is, and feeling fulfilled. That really is the goal. And being a publicist, you're very much on track for that, doing what you're doing. And with the marketing, I think it's gonna pan out in ways you might not foresee right now.
Oh, I don't doubt that. Seeing as where I've ended up right now, never in a million years would have expected to be doing the things I am now. So I can't even predict what my life is going to be like next month. So I'm just taking it day by day to see where I end up.
I feel like that is how we should be doing it, because you know, I'm a senior after this year. I have no clue where I'll be, and that's exciting and terrifying at the same time. But I think that's the way to live. I think it's, you know, you never know what's coming, but always be ready when it comes your way. So I know you've talked a lot about what you love about music, but I'd like to ask you some of your favorite music artists and genres.
This is a very dangerous question.
Oh.
So as I've mentioned before, I love water parks. I'm pretty insufferable about them. I don't think there's a person that knows of me that doesn't know that I love this band. I post about them all the time on social media. I also love Neck Deep. They're a pop punk band, and they were one of the bands that I got to kind of work with at Big Picture Media, which was super cool. I love One Direction. I was always a One Direction girl. I love 5 Seconds of Summer. I love Niall, Louis, and Harry's solo music, so super into that. There's a lot of contrast here. Huge My Chemical Romance fan. Love The Cure. Love Maroon 5. Love the 1975. I'm kind of all over the place.
There's nothing wrong with that.
As for genres, I usually like to say that I will listen to anything besides rap. Rap's just never been my thing. But, oh my gosh, I had a country phase in high school where all I listened to was country music.
I mean, that's coming back. That's big.
It is coming back. And I still like some country music, but for the past few years, I've been super into the pop punk, rock, alternative emo scene. I'm going to Vegas in the fall to go to the When We Were Young festival. My Chemical Romance and Fall Out Boy are headlining. I'm not ready for that. But
that's gonna be
it's gonna be
insane in Vegas. Wow.
Yeah. When I told my parents, I like impulsively bought the tickets. 'Cause we were in Vegas around that time the year before. Because I surprised my dad with tickets to see U2 at the Sphere because they're his favorite band ever, and they were doing their time at the Sphere was to celebrate one of their albums, and it was his favorite album. So I was like, I have to. Fought for my life for those tickets, by the way. Most terrifying experience ever. But the When We Were Young festival was happening around the same time, and Blink-182 and Green Day were headlining. And I was like, oh, I have to be there next year. So I remember I was driving home from fall break, and tickets went on sale. I pulled over at like a random rest stop on the highway, and I bought my tickets, and I got home, and I was like, hey, guys. So guess what I did? And my dad was like, who do you think is going with you? Fast forward to now, he's going with me.
Wow. It's like getting a dog. Your dad's like, no, I don't want the dog. And then you get the dog, and he becomes your dad's best friend. Oh,
exactly. I've taken him to so many concerts with me. He and I have always been very similar in the way that we struggle with, like, sensory overload. But concerts for me have always been the one place where I feel like I don't struggle with those things. And I genuinely think it's because I love the artist and I love the experience so much that it like overrides everything else. And I've taken him to see some of his favorite bands, and I've just seen him like open up and just let loose and have fun, which has been something so awesome to see. So sometimes I'll buy 2 tickets to a show, and I'm like, now you have no choice but to come with me. But I think he secretly loves it.
Yeah, you lock him in, and that's interesting because concerts are very stimulating.
Yes.
With lights and sounds. Like, why do you think that doesn't faze you?
I don't know. I mean, I'm still not sure to this day. I mean, sometimes after a long day, I just feel like so overwhelmed that if one person tries to talk to me, I'm like, no, I need to isolate for a little bit, and I need some alone time. But I think the excitement and seeing artists that I have loved for so many years just kind of, it takes over. And I think it's worth it. I think any time that I might feel a little bit overwhelmed, I know I can just like go to the bathroom and kind of take a minute. But I genuinely think it's getting to be there with so many people who are also so excited and just feeling the energy. For me, it trumps any feelings of anxiety or like stress that I might feel, which is really awesome.
So like your love of it kind of overwhelms you, so to speak,
yes.
and kind of takes away that sensory overload. Or as the kids would say, you would lock in.
Oh, yes. I get it's funny because on the drive over to whatever venue I'm going to, I get the most like world-ending anxiety ever. Because I honestly don't know why that is, because I'm so excited, but it like makes me so anxious. And I struggle to put it in words, but I know that a lot of people feel a similar way that I do, because I know a lot of my friends do. It's like you're so excited and you've been waiting for this moment for so long that it's like almost anxiety driving. It's so like, it's so exciting, but it's also like, oh my gosh, like this is the moment. And like, what am I going to do afterwards? Like, I've been waiting for this for a year. So it's super interesting to see kind of how those feelings conflict with each other in those situations.
Yeah, that is a very perplexing human emotion.
Yes.
Like before I went to LA for the summer, I was freaking out. I was a wreck because I was just so nervous. And even though I knew it was going to be an incredible experience and it ended up being better than what I thought it would be, I was still just like freaking out going in. So I very much understand where you were kind of in that space, because I could tell you're an introvert.
Yes.
I can sense.
You sense it, right? I've always been an introvert, but one of my goals coming to college was like, I need to be more outgoing. I need to be more of an extrovert. And I think I'm getting there slowly but surely and putting myself out there. I mean, high school me could never imagine me being in any sort of leadership position with like the crippling fear of public speaking I used to have. I could never imagine myself doing something like this or hosting a radio show every week on air. So they say that college is a time for personal growth, and I didn't really believe it when I was in high school. I was like, I feel like I'm going to be this way forever. But actually getting here and just kind of confronting those scary feelings and seeing that it's always going to be okay on the other side has been super reassuring.
Yeah, and who knows where you'll be. And I don't know if you've vibed me out enough yet, but do you have any recommendations for me of bands that you like?
Oh my gosh, this is a really good question. So like, what kind of genres do you like?
See,
anything specific?
I'm horrifyingly basic.
Okay.
I do listen to everything.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can like see into my soul and figure out what you think I would like, but yeah, I do listen to everything. I'm a big Coldplay guy. I don't know if that helps.
Yes.
I'm a big Coldplay guy. I do like Maroon 5 a lot as well.
Good.
Some
I'm
bangers
glad to hear that.
from the 2010s. So I don't know if that's like a good template for you, but
yeah, I think you seem like a pop enjoyer or like a mainstream music kind of enjoyer, which like is totally cool. I think there is a little bit of a stigma around like being fond of mainstream music. You don't have to like niche music or niche artists that have like 1,000 listeners on Spotify. And I see a lot of that with people in the radio station. They'll come up to me and say like, I need music recommendations. I feel like the only things that I like are things that are played on the radio, which is totally okay. Man, I would recommend, if you like Coldplay and Maroon 5, I think I would recommend the 1975. Only because all of their albums have very different feels. And I think even if you don't like one album, you will find something that you like on another album. So I think they would be my number one recommendation for you. Maybe Muse. Not sure if you are a Muse fan, but I think
I haven't heard of them.
I think that might resonate with the Coldplay.
Interesting.
So those are 2 recommendations I have for you.
Yeah.
But I'll think on it. If I think of anything else, I'll let you know.
Hit me up. Yeah. Yeah. People like to hate on popular stuff.
Yes, they do.
Like,
but it's popular for a reason.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a hot take.
And I mean, I love hot takes. It's great content. But yeah, I mean, I'm a big Nickelback guy.
Oh my gosh, I love Nickelback.
And people hate on Nickelback.
Yes, they do.
I always say it's because I just think it's because they're popular. Because people hate on Nickelback, but when Rockstar starts playing at the function, they start dancing and singing along.
Right. We have so many Nickelback songs on our sequencer at the station. Anytime you walk in, I guarantee you can probably hear Photograph.
Exactly. And that became an epic meme too.
Oh yeah.
Look at this, and it's just like something
Yep.
on the photograph.
I love it. I think it's so fun.
We need to bring that back.
We do.
Yeah.
I think you would really like The Cure. I'm sure
Cure?
you've heard Friday I'm in Love or Just Like Heaven.
I've heard The Cure. I don't know which song, but I've heard The Cure.
Yes, I think you'd really like them. They're a bit of an acquired taste, but I feel like you would like some older things as well. So I'll give you that too.
Yeah. I feel like I can be an acquired taste, so I think it fits the it fits the recommendation.
Yeah.
Yeah. How You Remind Me, that's another Nickelback song as well.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That I'm always bumping. So, yeah, I'm glad that I found another Nickelback enjoyer.
There's always a safe space for Nickelback with me.
Okay.
Trust me.
I'm glad. And even what you said about music, art, it applies to movies too. Where a lot of stuff you like the mainstream popular stuff, people are like, oh, those are mid. I like this independent film that 10 people have seen. Not that those are awesome as well.
Right.
I've been to Sundance, but
That's awesome.
There's that kind of dichotomy where it's like, just because it's popular doesn't mean it's lame.
I completely agree with that. It's funny, in my media history and memory class on Tuesday nights, we have a lot of film majors in that class. And my professor, when we were doing our introductions, went around and was like, okay, everyone that's a film major, I need to hear your favorite movie. And the amount of people that said Pulp Fiction, I feel like that's a stereotype around film majors, that their favorite movie is always Pulp Fiction. But I think it also stands to the fact that these movies are popular for a reason. And I think people forget that, because it wouldn't be such a beloved movie and it wouldn't be everyone's favorite if it wasn't good.
Exactly. Like, yeah, Yeah, Rye, you can attest to this too. That is one of the film major movies.
Yes.
We love Tarantino.
Mm-hmm.
Pulp Fiction, it's so sick. It's so good. And it's so influential for a reason. And like it's either like Pulp Fiction or like Whiplash.
Yes.
Those are like the film major movies.
We have someone who has a radio show. One of our eBoard members has a radio show, and it's called Whiplash.
Perfect. I mean, it is just perfect. And I think it leads us perfectly into our next topic, which are some of your favorite movies.
I also love this question. I was raised on Tim Burton movies. Those were always my dad's favorites, so I grew up watching The Nightmare Before Christmas, Beetlejuice, Edward Scissorhands, Corpse Bride, and to this day, those are all like my favorite movies, and they're so nostalgic for me. Jen and I recently saw Coraline in theaters for the anniversary, which was so awesome because I remember being a little kid and seeing it when it came out for the first time in 3D, and during the title sequence, when there's like the little needle that goes through the screen, seeing that in 3D, I cried when I was little. And Beetlejuice is coming out. I'm so excited. I haven't made my way to the theater to see it yet, but it's been one of my most anticipated movies of the year, and they're using a majority of the same original cast, which I'm like so antsy to get there and to see it. So those are some movies that I grew up on that still, I feel like it speaks to who I am as a person today. But I feel like my dad influenced me so much because I am such a horror nerd. I love scary movies. And I remember my mom and I would drive to our local public library when I was little, and I loved to just like walk around and look at all the books. And so we had this shelf where people could put different things on hold, and my dad always put movies on hold. So I remember running to the pickup shelf, and I would look for Our Last Name, and I always wanted to watch what he was watching, but my parents never let me because they were always scary movies. And I remember so vividly one day going to pick up his movies, and one of them was 10 Cloverfield Lane. And I remember looking at the cover, and I'm like, this is so sick. Same thing when he put on hold, this will come into play in a minute, he put on hold this movie called Sinister. And I remember just looking at the front cover, and I was like, this is crazy. I've never seen anything like this before. And I asked him if I could watch it with him. I was like 8 years old. He was like, no, absolutely not. And so I kind of spent my whole childhood waiting to grow up so that I could watch what he was watching. Same thing with The Walking Dead. He would watch it every single Sunday, and I always wanted to watch it with him. And he was like, no, not yet. You're still too little. So when I finally got to the age where he was like, I think that this is okay for you now, every Sunday, that became our thing. So my dad has definitely been one of the biggest influences on me in general. But speaking to the topic of horror, Sinister is now one of my favorite movies of all time. Watching it for the first time, I was like, oh, this is why he didn't want me watching it when I was 8 years old. So Sinister, Midsummer, two of my favorite movies. Okay, this next one is interesting. I feel like you may be familiar with it now that it has gotten popular. Terrifier.
I have not.
You're not familiar. That's
No,
okay.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to disappoint.
That's okay. I don't think you would like it anyway.
Okay.
So, oh my gosh, one of my favorite movies ever, which my friends like to call me a freak for it, but I love a good slasher movie. I love like bad special effects, low budget slasher, and that's what that is. First movie came out in 2016, I believe. I found it on Netflix one day, and I watched it, and I just fell in love with it. And now we have the sequel that recently came out 2 years ago, I think. So the first movie was like $35,000 budget, made in the director's hometown with like 4 people. It was never something that was like intended to blow up and become popular. And every time someone would ask me, what's your favorite scary movie? And I'd say, oh, Terrifier. They'd be like, I don't know what that is. Let me look it up. And they'd be like, that's what you like? Yes, it is. So the sequel's coming out. I was super excited. And it just like wasn't picking up a lot of traction, the announcement of the sequel. And which is like what I kind of expected. I wasn't even expecting there to be a sequel, let alone for it to have any sort of theatrical release. But it ended up having a limited theatrical release. And this was my freshman year, didn't have a car on campus. My dad came and picked me up because there were no theaters in Connecticut playing it, and we drove home to see it on opening night, and it was such a crazy experience seeing that little indie film that was like $30,000 to make have a sequel on the big screen. And it was really only supposed to be in theaters for 4 days. It was like a Friday to Monday type deal. But the response was so overwhelming that they put it in theaters for another weekend and another weekend and another, and it ended up grossing $15 million at the box office.
Wow.
Which I did not see that coming. No one saw it coming. And I think it's really awesome because that movie, the sequel, had a bigger budget than the first movie, but it was almost completely crowdfunded. I think their goal was like $20,000 or $40,000 as like a crowdfunding goal, and it raised something like $200,000 because people were just so desperate for a sequel. So they definitely had a bigger budget to work off of. So that was more special effects, more bad special effects, which I love. But yeah, it was really successful. It was a huge hit at the box office, and almost immediately they were talking about the third one. I felt lucky to get a sequel, and now we're talking about a third one that comes out in just over a month. I'm so excited.
Yeah. You used to pray for times like this.
I did, genuinely. I got to meet the director and the lead actor that plays like the villain when they were on the bill for a horror convention that was coming around Connecticut last year. And it was so crazy because I'm like, the fact that you guys are big enough now to be on horror conventions and traveling around the country, it was super awesome to be able to talk to them and say like, I have been a fan since like day one, and watching this grow is just the best feeling ever. So I have my tickets for October 11th already. I'm driving back home to see it with my dad on opening night. So excited. So yeah, that's just me yapping about my favorite movie.
Wow. That's another just wow moment. You're an OG fan. Shout out your dad. He's a real one.
He is.
And yeah, I very much can see the Tim Burton fandom in what you do. Like, I grew up on his Batman movies.
Oh, yes.
I love those. I recently saw the new Beetlejuice.
Did you like it? What did you think?
I have to admit, I'm not much of a horror guy, but I appreciated the comedy. Like, a lot of like great comedic actors like Michael Keaton, Catherine O'Hara, Jenna Ortega's super talented, and it has like the Wednesday vibes are very much there. So I thought it was a cool time. Definitely great like Halloween or leading into Halloween movie, because right after summer ends, it's just Halloween.
Oh, I agree. Like, September doesn't exist in my mind. August and September, it's just October for 3 months. Did you see the original before?
I have not, so maybe
I think you need to watch the
maybe I'm fake, but no, I have not seen the original, but I want to because it's obviously a cult classic. And yeah, after seeing this one, I'm like, I think I would enjoy the original.
I think you'd really like the original. Just like seeing the kind of movies that you like, I think you'd be able to appreciate the artistry and what it took to make the original.
Yeah. And what do you think? I know you talk about the special effects. What draws you to horror?
I don't know. I think I've always been an adrenaline junkie. I've always been super sensory seeking. As much as I've been a very sensory overload person, and it's very easy to overwhelm me, I find myself seeking those things. Like, I wear rings all the time. I'm always like fidgeting with them. I loved roller coasters as a kid because I loved that feeling in my stomach of like going down a huge drop. And I feel like I'm always searching for that kind of feeling, and horror has been the closest that I can get to having that feeling kind of like on demand. Except my problem is nothing scares me. And I think subconsciously I just know that nothing is real. So it never really gets to me. I love Jen. She hates scary movies. There's been a few movies that we've been able to enjoy together, but she loves to listen to me talk about them, but she doesn't like to watch them. And I always ask her, I'm like, what is it about scary movies that scares you? Like, what makes you not feel like you can watch them? And she always says that she doesn't like things that it feels like it could happen to her, which I think is a super popular point, but I feel kind of the opposite because I find myself seeking out movies that are more realistic because, like, ghosts, zombies, vampires, they aren't real. Like, although I do believe in ghosts, but that's a topic for another day. I think just, like, the very real feeling, like, if it says, like, based on a true story, I'm eating it up. And so I feel like I am searching for that feeling of, like, the adrenaline rush. And I've seen probably every scary movie under the sun that I don't have to go on the dark web to find. And there's only been a very select handful of movies that, like, I actually get, like, this, like, weird feeling in my stomach. And Terrifier was one of them. And I think something about low-budget movies with actors that you've never seen without the money to do crazy CGI or crazy special effects, they get under your skin a little bit more, which is why I'm a huge fan of the found footage genre. So, like, Blair Witch, all of that stuff, it feels so real. And I really appreciate within that genre, recognizable actors aren't typically used for that genre, which I really like because it lends to it feels real. I remember when Blair Witch came out, everyone thought that it was real. And people were going to the police saying, like, oh my gosh, like, I think this is real, this is happening. It was a movie. But it's just so interesting to see that someone can create a piece of media like that. And it's just so realistic. And I think it attests to, like, the actor's ability to pull something like that off. And also for something that it doesn't cost a lot of money to make those movies, but they're hugely successful. And I think that's really awesome to see. One of my favorite found footage movies ever is called The House is October Built. I talk about this movie whenever I get the chance because I feel like people don't appreciate it enough or even know what it is. And I know you're not a horror guy, but the premise is that these group of friends are traveling around the country to find the scariest haunted house. And so it's kind of like a vlog of them. They're in their, like, RV. They're going around to all these different states, and you see them going through all these different haunts. And it was kind of filmed as, like, a mockumentary. So they're talking to actual workers at the haunts. And there was a point that was raised in the movie, which I think is actually relevant in real life, that enough people don't talk about, or not enough people talk about it. And in the movie, they were interviewing one of these haunt workers, and they asked, do you run background checks on your scare actors? And how do you make sure that it's actually safe? And I had never thought about that before. I've never liked haunted houses, which I think is a huge contrast to basically everything about me. Like, once it feels real, I think that's the difference with me between scary movies and haunted houses. It's like, once it feels real, that's where I tap out. So thinking about that gave me a whole new perspective. And I actually did my own research on it after because I was curious. And I mean, there are some haunts, especially out in, like, rural places, who don't do background checks. There are, like, you know, people who maybe shouldn't be there working there. And I think it just raised a good point, and I don't know if they really meant to raise that point, but I thought that was kind of a profound moment. But anyways, these haunt actors end up not liking that they're going around and, you know, poking and prodding behind the scenes, and so all of these haunt actors are, like, following them around, but they don't know it. And they end up finding this the most, like, legendary haunt, which is called the Blue Skeleton. And you have to find the Blue Skeleton, but the Blue Skeleton also finds you. So they end up in some state, and they, like, find the people that run the Blue Skeleton, and they all go to sleep in their RV that night, and when they wake up in the morning, their RV is out front of the haunt. And they're like, how did we get here? And I'll spare the spoilers in case anyone watching wants to watch, which I think they should. There's a sequel to the movie, And I think this is one of the super rare cases that a sequel is done as well as the first one, and it actually has a good ending. There was a huge twist in the end of the sequel, which I feel like maybe some people could see it coming. I didn't see it coming at all. I finished the sequel and I was gagged. I was like, there's no way that just happened. And then I had to go back and watch the first one again to just kind of like take what I had known and apply that to the movie. And it was one of the best viewing experiences I've ever had. So any fans of found footage, that is my number one recommendation.
Wow. Thought-provoking.
I know I kind of threw a lot at you there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm absorbing all of it. And I kind of like what you said about like those low-budget movies with actors you don't recognize because it feels more real. I know that's what people are seeking. Like, you'll never see Leonardo DiCaprio being chased by Jason.
Oh, exactly. And if you did, you'd probably laugh.
Because it just doesn't feel right. And yeah, that's interesting. Like, the scare actors and the found footage and the way that it's like the dichotomy and duality between, or juxtaposition between, like the movies and the haunted houses. Like, I thought that was so fascinating that it's like there's a cutoff point.
Yeah, and that's like something I've kind of struggled to understand with myself over the past few years, because I had never really been to a haunted house. Just the idea of it, even when I thought about it, in theory, like they sound so cool and I would love to go, but every time I would like kind of make the moves to go, I got this like sinking feeling in my stomach and I was like, this is not a good idea. And it was in high school. I think it was maybe my junior year. My childhood best friends and I and all of our parents went to this little local like cornfield. They had corn mazes, like zombie paintball, which were super fun. And they had two haunted houses. They had an actual haunted house in a barn, and then they had a haunted corn maze. And I walk up to the corn maze and I could just like hear the chainsaws. I can hear the screaming. And they tried, like, my friend bought me a ticket because he was like, I know you're not going to buy yourself a ticket, but if I buy you a ticket, you have to go through.
It's like what you do to your dad.
Yes, exactly. And I was like, man, is this how my dad feels? Spoiler alert, I didn't end up going through with it. I let them all go. And there was a scare actor that... So there were a bunch of hay bales that were stacked up that was like by the entrance. There was a scare actor that was like peeking over the hay bales. It's pitch black out, so I don't see them. And so the entire line goes through, and I'm kind of just like standing next to the area where the line would be with the line attendant. The scare actor jumps over the hay bales, and there were two of them. The first one was someone in like a tan, almost like military kind of outfit with like fake weapons. Most terrifying experience of my entire life. I remember just like booking it and running because my mind couldn't process the fact that like that wasn't someone real chasing me. And then another one popped out. And it was this, like, scarecrow-looking guy with a jack-o'-lantern on his head and a chainsaw, which is, like, the most stereotypical thing ever. And they were both chasing me, and I was screaming. And I could hear my friends screaming from inside the maze. It was awful. And so I think after I got that first taste, I was like, now there's no way. Now there's no way I'm ever going in one. So I think that's the line for me, is when it becomes real, that's when it becomes a little too much for me. Like scary movies, it's just a screen. Like they can't do anything to me, but they can chase me with a chainsaw, and I don't like that.
Yeah, you got your cardio in.
Oh, I did. I don't think my heart has ever beat that fast in my life. I looked at my I was wearing a little Fitbit. I looked at it and it was just, they were like, you need to calm down.
Yeah, I've never been to a haunted house. So
I don't know if it would be your thing.
I don't think it would be.
Yeah.
I think you'd hear the Zicast as screaming. I don't even know how I would react, but yeah, I don't think it fits. I don't think it fits, but hey, I didn't think concerts would fit. So
True,
you never know.
You
never know. Maybe I should, hit one up this Halloween season that spans from the end of August to October.
Universal does their Halloween Horror Nights. I don't know if you're familiar, But it's on my bucket list of things that I want to do. And I will definitely have to overcome my fear of haunted houses, but they just had their opening night ceremonies last night, and I was watching all the videos. And this year, it's sort of like they'll have like 8 big attractions, and so they'll take Universal, like the parks, and they'll transform it into like this huge Halloween celebration. And it's kind of the opposite of Disney, where Disney does the family-friendly kind of Halloween.
Yeah.
Universal does the scares and the thrills for everyone else.
That fits.
Yes.
That fits very well.
So they've had like houses dedicated to The Conjuring, Annabelle, The Black Phone, which was an amazing movie that I loved so much.
Ethan Hawke. He was
yes.
in that, yes.
They're doing a sequel.
Oh, wow.
Super excited. But they do a lot of Universal-themed haunted houses. They did a generalized Blumhouse-themed house a couple years ago, which was, I would give anything to go through it. They have one this year, and it's a Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Oh, you'll be seated.
I will. And I was so close to buying a plane ticket to be there because it's one of my like biggest bucket list items. But they do have like scare actors, so many of them, that will run around and like chase you while you're in line, which it's probably my worst nightmare. But also I love seeing my favorite movies get turned into haunted houses. And I think it kind of goes back to the concert thing, where I think if I am excited enough and if one of my absolute favorite movies was turned into a haunted house, I think that it would kind of balance out the anxiety from being there with all of the scare actors.
Yeah. It's more immersive.
Yes,
So-
it's very immersive.
So how do they chase you while you're in line? Because
They'll chase you out of line.
They'll chase you out of line. So
Yeah.
it's like the struggle, you have to like get back in line.
Yeah, I mean, usually people don't go by themselves. So usually people go with their friends and families. So you can just like hop back in with your friends and families. But the lines, I mean, they'll have like 8 major houses for like major films. And then they have a bunch of smaller ones. But since there's only a couple, the lines can be crazy. You can be waiting hours to get in to a house. So the scare actors are also there to like entertain you while you're waiting for so long, and to make sure that you're immersed while you're standing for 2 or 3 hours. I think it was last year or maybe the year before, they had someone who was dressed up as the grabber.
That sounds pleasant.
Yes, and he
guy
was
called the
going around.
grabber.
Yeah, from the Black Phone, and he was going around and handing out balloons to people in line, which was just, it's so cool, because the Black Phone is one of my favorite movies. I was like, man, I would do anything to be there. So that's one of my bucket list items.
Wow. And I'm sure you'll get there with Killer Clowns. Oh my goodness, it would be
My dream.
exactly your dream. Your dream. And yeah, this is definitely the longest this question has ever been answered on my podcast.
Really?
Yeah. Usually your favorite movies is like a 2-minute little ender. This was like a.
My apologies. I'm
No,
such a yapster.
No, it's not your apologies. This was an epic moment to like. You're not even a film student, and we got so much out of this.
Yeah.
And we started talking about haunted houses. I never thought we'd get into haunted houses.
This was very enlightening. I had so much fun, and honestly, any chance that I get to yap about my special interests, you'll be here forever.
I'm always happy to hear it. I can see your radio presence, being able to talk on camera so fluently for so long.
Yeah.
Like I really respect that, and you also set a fantastic standard for Zicast guests.
Oh, thank
Being
you.
so prepared with the written questions, I love that because it just makes everything so much smoother, and I appreciate having you on. Like I respect the blue eyes with the blue eyeliner.
Oh, thank you.
That's sweet. I did that. My brand is very blue.
Yeah.
So I respect that. And yeah, just thank you again for coming on. Always very kind, always very sweet. Really fun working with you at Wake the Giant, and I hope I can help out WQAQ or whatever if you ever need anyone.
Well, that would be awesome. We would love to have you involved, because we definitely need more people who know how to do like behind the scenes stuff too. So yeah, thank you for having me on. I mean, I never thought I'd end up here on your podcast, but it was so much fun. So I really enjoyed talking about the things that we did.
Of course. And if you ever need anyone, you could just hit up the Zicast.
Thank you.
Of course. So as always, This is Ryan Zicast with the Zicast, where everyone has a story. Signing off. Thank you so much for watching.